Welcome to this video on the dark aspects or the shadow archetypes of the 7 Greek goddesses: Aphrodite, Artemis, Athena, Hestia, Demeter, Persephone, and Hera. Now, I actually designed a triple goddess quiz and a triple goddess code ebook to figure out what your moon, sun, and rising goddess are, which helps you understand how you naturally magnetize in your life, help you understand love, finances, business, career, spiritual path, things of that nature, and how to integrate those shadow and light archetypes in order to embody your inner goddess more fully. If you're interested in that, definitely check that out. I have the links in the description. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So, I am obsessed with archetypes. Archetypes are how we can really understand, overstand, and understand the inner workings of our psyche. When we talk about goddess archetypes, we are essentially talking about the different aspects of femininity and what that means. Now, there are many goddess archetypes around the world. They change from culture to culture, but we're going to concentrate specifically on the Greek archetypes for this video. Now, I want to start with one of my favorites, which is Aphrodite. Aphrodite is the goddess of love, beauty, luxury, and yes, even war. The dark side, or the shadow side of her, would be the siren, or what I call the shadow siren. So this is a woman's ability to allure, to draw in, to magnetize. The shadow aspects of the siren are manipulation and seduction that leads to the downfall of someone else, or for the purpose of asserting control over somebody else. Now, if you have Aphrodite prominent, for example, I have what's called an Aphrodite moon. Aphrodite is going to paint your entire reality with a certain level of sensuality. But like any goddess archetype, it is important for us to integrate the shadow aspects so that the other aspects may shine through, radiate through, right? What's a good example of Aphrodite? Let's take a look at Disney. Ursula, perfect example, right? Ursula is emotionally manipulative. She is alluring. She is seductive, in particular when she takes on the form of a beautiful woman and when she tricks Ariel into giving her voice. Now, it's important for us to understand how to utilize the strengths of Aphrodite within us. Everybody carries these archetypes to some degree, just some people have them more dominant than others. But it's very important for us to integrate these shadow aspects of her so that we are stronger in our archetype expression. So when it comes to Aphrodite, that would make us authentically magnetic. That would make us effortlessly alluring. But with the healthy boundaries to where we're not just drawing in anyone and everyone. And we're also not doing it with the motivation to control or to manipulate. Let's move on. So the next archetype I would like to talk about is Artemis. Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, the wild one, the independent one. Basically, she's like the stereotypical tomboy that has a mind of her own. She's not going to follow the societal standards set up for women. She reminds us that women can be warriors too. Women can be hunters too. With this, there is the shadow archetype of the woman that doesn't need help. This is, showing up as like, I don't need anyone. I don't need the universe. I don't need a man, right? So this energy also shows up as relentlessly pursuing goals, as she is the archer. And so in relentlessly pursuing goals, sometimes she fails to see the damage that is wrought along the way. Or maybe she's failing to see the bigger picture and how her actions are influencing things. Or maybe she's running herself ragged. Her strengths are her relentlessness, her motivation, her ability to see the end goal through. So in understanding, and overstanding her shadow attributes, we can better laser focus in on our goals, but without becoming too fixated, without becoming too independent, to where we see ourselves as an island, isolated. Because eventually we start telling ourselves a story that we don't need help when we do. Everyone does from time to time, right? So in looking at this from, again, more of that character perspective, I think her name is Medea. The cool redhead chick from the movie Brave would be a perfect example of this archetype. She didn't want to follow the societal structure laid out with her. She wanted to be a huntress. She wanted to be a warrior. She was very in tune with the wilderness. And in her not listening and relentlessly pursuing her goals, her mother ended up transformed into a bear, and she had to help her mother and learn how her actions are not separate from the collective, which is kind of the lesson there. So whereas Aphrodite has to learn that her actions are not separate when it comes to, alluring, seduction, emotional manipulation, and that sort of way, that we don't have to resort to these things to get our way. Artemis's lesson is we need to think about how in our extreme times of independence, how our actions might be affecting others and how they might be affecting us negatively, when all we had to do was ask for help, right? Let's go ahead and move on. We have Athena. Now, Athena, I like to call the shadow crone in this regard, right? Athena is the wise one. Athena is a knowledgeable one. She is the part of the divine feminine that is logical. So like Artemis, that is associated as a quote unquote masculine trait. But Artemis shows us that women can be huntresses and warriors. And Athena shows us women can be philosophers and wise ones, right? In fact, some of the first civilizations were built around the wise woman archetype. Now, when this shadow is in its extreme, she comes across as the old decrepit crone, right? The grumpy one, the one that is not emotional, too calculating, too strategic, not in touch with her feelings or her compassion, right? In this case, she comes across as like Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove, not really caring about what happened, just being strategic, and possibly even vengeful, but in a cold and calculating way, not in a way that is overtly emotional. She has a hard time being in touch with her heart. So her strength is that she is wise, she is knowledgeable, she is logical, she is strategic, she is calculating. The shadow side of that is that she can be out of touch with her intuition. She can disregard others' emotions. She can make decisions maybe that where the ends justify the means instead of what is good for her and those involved. Again, how do your actions affect the collective? Are you doing it for the good of yourself and those involved? Or are you doing it because the ends justify the means, because it is logical, right? So when we integrate that aspect, then we can be logical. We can be wise. We can be clear-headed, level-headed, but also intuitive and able to express our emotions in a healthy, communicative way. Next up, we have Demeter. So Demeter is the shadow mother archetype. Her dark side is that she can be overbearing, controlling, fearful of losing her children to the point where she smothers them. She could also take on the stepmother archetype, the evil stepmother archetype, where, for example, a perfect example of her could be the stepmother in Cinderella, right? So she controls even her own daughters. She's like pushing them and manipulating them, to go after the prince and to turn on Cinderella. But she's also controlling what Cinderella can do. And, putting her in this very abusive situation, right? So whereas in the light aspect, the mother would be nurturing and protective in a healthy way, the shadow archetype is the mother is suffocating, controlling, fearful, enabling. So in order to integrate these traits so that we can learn how to be both loving and protective without being overbearing, without being controlling, not letting our fear dictate how we deal with others. It doesn't even have to be children or our own children. It can just be anybody, right? That need to micromanage, or that need to put in your 2 cents, or that need to be the mama bear, right? Being able to relax and let other people make their decisions, make their choices. So yes, as children, when we're taking care of children, there needs to be healthy boundaries up. There definitely needs to be do's and don'ts rules, but there shouldn't be smothering, overprotectiveness, or meddling or enabling to the point where the child feels like they don't have their own identity, or in any relationship we have to any degree, right? So once that is integrated, then she becomes a strong, healthy, protective, loving, nurturing force. Let's move on to Hestia. Hestia in her dark form would be the sorceress, the extreme hearth guardian, right? Where she's the hearth keeper, in her light aspect. She is like the dark sorceress in her darker aspect. I would compare her to Maleficent. Perfect example. She uses power for vendetta. She uses power to protect herself, to isolate herself, to focus on her home and her environment. So it's the shadow side of taking care of the home, taking care of the hearth, taking care of the environment, using hearth magic to create a warm, inviting home that is also safe, turning that into a fortress. And for example, what Maleficent did early on, and this all came from the wounded feminine, her being hurt by what had happened. If we're using an example from the movie Maleficent and not Sleeping Beauty, but she did this because she was so hurt, and then she wanted to take it back. And she ended up stepping into the mother archetype. But Hestia is very powerful because Hestia represents the realm of the woman in her magical space. So when those shadow traits are integrated in a healthy way, she is not afraid to leave her home or trying to keep everyone out. She's not doing magic to, enforce a vendetta or out of fear or vengeance. She's doing things to protect her home, to make her home a warm and inviting place, but no one can cross who intends her or her family harm. Next up, we have Hera. Hera is actually my rising goddess in my triple goddess code. And again, if you guys are interested in what yours is, definitely go to my website, take the quiz, get the ebook to unlock those abilities. Really powerful, very affordable. Check it out. But that being said, Hera is the Shadow Queen. She is the ruler. She represents marriage, relationships, authority. empires and structures. But in her shadow aspect, she is jealous. She is vindictive. She is cold and calculating in the sense of a controlling way and an empress type way or a queen type way. So the perfect example would be the queen in Snow White, right? Whether you look at the live action versions of that movie or you look at the cartoon, either way, perfect example. She wanted power. She wanted control. She was very jealous. She wanted to be the one that everyone thought was the most fair, the most beautiful. And in her story, Hera was actually, she never cheated on Zeus. She was jealous because he cheated on her, but instead of her handling it in a healthy way, she lashed out against his children, right? Just like in Snow White. So, if we're going to integrate that, we integrate the shadow side of that, then we are loyal, structured women that build empires. Usually business women have this archetype somewhere, right? We build empires, we have our own kingdoms, we take care of our family, but we don't let jealousy, pettiness, and vengefulness get in the way. We are careful that just because we're able to build empires doesn't mean we have to be like cold and calculating about upholding structures and authority, right? So we can be that queen, that empress in a healthy way. So the last step, and this one I actually also have as my sun goddess, is Persephone. Persephone is a very complex goddess archetype. And I absolutely love her because she is one of the archetypes that I think a lot of women have, and one of the ones that we repress the most. She, in her dark form, represents destruction because in her wholeness, she represents cyclical transformation. She is the maiden, yet she's the maiden that was kidnapped, brought down, married Hades, and became queen of the underworld. So when she descended into her underworld, when she went through that chaos, like she ended up ruling her own underworld. So she represents how us women can face our shadows, face our demons, and rule over it. Own that dark power and rule over it with temperance. But in the shadow state, she is like Hela from Thor Ragnarok, just chaos for the sake of chaos, uprooting, catalyzing things. Like you might feel like when you're around her, like she's just like a maelstrom, right? Or she might resist transformation and try to hold on to things as long as possible out of fear for things, her losing something. But what is not meant for her will be let go of. So when we integrate that shadow archetype, we're able to, in transforming ourselves and integrating those shadows within, we're actually able to stand in the fullness of our power and rule our underworld. I love the Greek goddess archetypes as representation. And just as a bonus, I want to throw out there that I would put Hecate. Some people might say Hecate, I say Hecate. One of my first matrons I worked with in an external sense before I started working more within her archetypes. In my opinion, she would represent all of these because she is the queen of the crossroads. She is the queen of heaven and of earth in the underworld. She walks between the liminal spaces. She is the torchbearer, and she is also the queen of witches. She is all of it. So I would definitely put her as sort of a representation of all these dark archetypes, all these shadow archetypes united. And in my next video, I am going to talk about the light aspects of these archetypes. But I wanted to start with the dark because I believe that because our subconscious, some say 70%, some say 80% of us is our subconscious, our unconscious, our darkness. We start with the dark. We start with that shadow work in order to empower ourselves by reintegrating what was lost. Then we can shine in the light. So next up is the light. I have a masterclass, guys. Please don't miss out on this. Called Goddess Alchemy, Awaken Your Dark and Light Feminine. I have an early bird special going on with like bonus features where this class is normally $555 and this early bird special knocks off $111. And this is a very in-depth masterclass. We go in deep with like the dark and light goddess archetypes, healing all of this, activating all of this, learning how to turn this into personal magnetism and power, creating the life that you desire. And the best part is you work at your own pace. Definitely check it out. If you are ready to awaken your inner goddess, if this sounds like you, if you're ready to step into your power, definitely join me in that masterclass. Don't miss out on it. The link is in the description below. Please like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be doing lots of amazing videos, guys. And I would love to hear, comment down below, which of these archetypes, we're talking about just the dark side, right? The shadow side, which of these archetypes resonate most with you as far as like, which do you feel that you already embody really strongly? And if you'd like, also share maybe which one do you feel like you could maybe work on, heal, integrate, and strengthen. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you guys on the other side.